Hey everyone! Today we're going to sew the Delilah dual compartment bag from Oro Rosa Patterns. I love this bag. It's got dual zipper compartments, hence the name. It's got this cute little accent strip running up the center. On the back there's a magnetic slip pocket. Inside you'll find a slip pocket and card slots, like so. I'll show you how this sits on the body. It's just this cute little bag here, but it's got tons of room inside. So this is what we'll be sewing today. I do want to warn you that I'm actually sewing a peacock blue one for the video, not this rainbow one. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them below. I'm going to go ahead and start with my connectors, my accent piece, and my strap. I went ahead and marked a line down the center of each of these and applied 1/4 inch double-sided tape to all the pieces. We're going to put the accent piece off to the side for now. Go ahead and take your D-ring connectors and peel the backing off and fold the raw edges up to the mark you made. And then we'll stitch down both sides at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and stitch around all 4 sides just for safety. Then we'll repeat with this second one. I'm using faux suede, so I'm going to use a 5.5 stitch length, and then I'm going to use the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that your connectors are top stitched, you can set those aside for now and move on to your strap. We're going to do the same thing. Take the double-sided tape backing off and fold the raw edges in to meet the center line you drew. And then we're going to fold that one more time and we'll top stitch all the way down. So you'll fold that raw edge in, you'll top stitch all the way down and across all 4 sides. Again, I'll be using that 5.5 seam. You'll now need your strap, 2 swivels, a slider, and 2 rivets. We're going to start with 1 swivel and stick it on, making sure the right side is with the right side of the strap. Fold it over about 1.25 inches, make a mark about 5/8 of an inch down, and punch a hole. I've done these a few times, so I'm just going to guesstimate where the rivet goes. After you punch your hole, you can set your rivet. Then you'll come down to the other end of the strap, making sure you're on the right side still. Take your slide adjuster and come up and over the center bar. I like to leave some slack here when doing that part. Then take your swivel, your last swivel, slide it on. Make sure it's on the exterior side as well. Then take your raw edge and come up and over the center bar once more. You're going to fold this over also about 1.25 inches. Then mark about 5/8 of an inch away, and then make your hole and set your rivet. You're only doing it through the 2 layers. Your strap is complete and you can set that to the side for now. Now you can grab that accent piece, remove the double-sided tape backing, and fold those raw edges in to meet the center line that you drew earlier. Then place a strip of double-sided tape along that center of your accent piece. Grab your main panel and mark the center and 3/8 of an inch to the left of the center. Then line your ruler up with the 3/8 of an inch mark. Remove your double-sided tape backing and line your accent piece up against the ruler for 6 inches. That should make you about 3.5 inches away from the curved edge. If you are not going to use a plate or a name tag on this part, go ahead and fold that top edge under 1/2 inch. Now we can top stitch this accent on. I have a sew-on tag, so I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape on the back of my tag and then overlap the top, ensuring that this is straight, and then I'll stitch it on. So your main panel will look like this now. Go ahead and retrieve the rest of pattern pack 2. Measure your centers on the back pocket lining and find and mark for your washer placement. Then install your magnet, your washer, some Decaville light, and then cover with some duct tape. Then we'll go ahead and grab the exterior and put it right sides together with the lining, and we're going to sew that top curved edge at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Trim your seam allowances as stated in the pattern. So it'll look like this, and then we'll turn it right sides out, and then we'll top stitch that curved edge we just sewed. After top stitching that on, I realized I had the wrong magnet in, so I went ahead and switched that out. Go ahead and measure, mark, and install your magnet on your back main panel. Then grab your pocket you just did and snap your pocket together. Line up the bottom edges, and then you're going to pop your pocket just a little bit. You just do that by bringing it in so there's a little bit of a gape. Then we'll baste this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and grab your 2 zippers and lay double-sided tape across the top edge of one of them. I used 1/8 inch double-sided tape. Remove your backing and then put your 2 zippers right sides together, lining up the raw edges. Then we're going to baste this together at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and mark the centers of your zipper tape and 1 inch away from each end. Then take your lining panel and mark the centers at the top and the bottom. Then we'll match our top markings together and clip them on. And then we'll finish clipping around until you get to that 1 inch marking. So it'll look like this now. And then here's from the back side. We're now going to sew this from one of the 1 inch markings all the way around to the other 1 inch marking using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure we're sewing this on this time. We can now trim away any overhang from the main lining panel when you sewed on your zipper. You're not going to want to trim any of your zipper, just the overhang. So this is what your lining panel looks like right now. Your zipper is sandwiched in there with the right sides together, and the wrong side of the zipper is on the back as well. We're going to go ahead and repeat that same process using the other lining panel and sandwiching the zipper in the in-between. So find that center mark on the zipper and your other lining panel and clip it together, and then clip around. Then we'll sew it again at 1/4 of an inch to that 1 inch mark we made on the zipper. Go ahead and trim down any overhang you have, but don't trim your zipper. Then grab your binding. I'm using waterproof canvas for my binding, cut at 1 1/4 inches. And I'm just going to fold this over the edge using my folded halfway mark as a guide. And I'll just fold this around, and then we'll sew this on at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So this is what you have on the front and the back. I'm going to trim my binding down so it's not so overhang like. You can go ahead and turn that right sides out now. So now you have your 2 lining pieces sewn wrong sides together and your zipper sandwich in the in-between. And your zipper is actually right sides together. We're going to go ahead and install our zippers now. Okay, all 4 zipper pulls are on. We're going to trim a 1/2 inch off of each edge of these zipper ends. I like to do that by folding everything out of the way, grabbing a little ruler, and making a mark across at the 1/2 inch point. I'm going to use this chalk and we'll trim that down. And we'll repeat for the other side. So I've gone ahead and marked the centers of my lining gussets, the centers of my gusset exterior. Then I marked the centers of the ends of the gusset exterior. And then I measured and marked rivet holes and punched them for the gusset exterior and the D-ring tabs. So go ahead and put your gussets aside for now and grab your lining panels. Take one of your connectors and nest it between the zippers where the rivet holes are on the opposite end. And we're going to base that on at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then we'll repeat for the other side. I like to make sure I pull everything out of the way so we don't baste any of the lining into this part. I like to do this next part by orienting the lining gussets with the right sides looking up at you and the straight sides next to each other. Then we're going to take that right side of our lining gusset and we're going to put it to the wrong side of our zipper. And you'll probably have to overlap them a little bit. So you have something like this from the underside. I'm going to clip it down. So you have the right side of those gussets to the wrong side of your zipper. Your lining main panels are pushed out of the way. And this is what you have from the exterior side. And then we'll base this on. Then with those zippers facing right side up, grab your exterior and clip it together. Then we'll sew that at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure that main lining pieces stay out of the way. I like to check to make sure none of my main lining got caught in that seam allowance. And my gusset linings got all caught. Then I'll go ahead and trim down that gusset exterior layer to 1/8 of an inch. And I melted my zipper ends as well. Now we can go ahead and fold that gusset away from the zipper, keeping everything out of the way. Top stitch this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now we can go ahead and slide a D-ring on. Grab your 2 rivets. Put one of the rivets on the exterior side through the middle hole. Fold it over to the first hole and put your second rivet on the top hole. Then you can fold these over and line them up with the holes you made on your gusset. Push those through and install your rivets. Then you'll have this little bit of overhang here for the gravity of the bag. Now we'll repeat that whole process on the second side of the bag. Now we're going to align the straight sides of our gusset lining to our lining main panel. We're going to do that by matching our center markings right sides together and clipping them on. Then we'll continue clipping around until we get all the way to the zipper, as close to it as we can. So I'm going to start up there now. Then we'll go sew this on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to start as close to the zipper as I can right now, and then I'll come back and show you what I do at the end. We're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance and go as close as you can to this side. Now I've gone ahead and flipped the bag over, and I'm going to start where I began at the last time, and I'm going to sew as close to the zipper as I can now. Go ahead and glue any holes you may have and repeat for the other liner. Then go ahead and trim your seam allowances down. Then we'll go ahead and match up the wrong sides of the liner to the wrong sides of the gusset, and then we're going to baste all the way around. Then repeat for the other side. And this is what you should have so far. Go ahead and grab your slip pocket and measure and mark as indicated in the pattern. Then taking that first 7-inch line, fold it right sides together on that 7-inch line. Then press the next line wrong sides together. I like to use this little tool here on the waterproof canvas so I can get a line without having to press with my iron. Now we'll go ahead and top stitch that 4 3/4 inch line. Go ahead and refold that 7-inch line from earlier. And it should give you a little piece like this now, with your opening at the top. I'm going to go ahead and clip that together. Then I'll grab my 2 lining side panels and make sure they're oriented on the correct side. And starting from the top, I'm going to line them up and clip them on. And then we'll sew this on with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. You'll notice I have a little overhang at the bottom. That's okay. I'll trim that off at the end. Go ahead and trim that side panel layer only, leaving the slip pocket alone. open up both sides and top stitch down that folded edge we just created. Go ahead and flip this over and trim down that little bulk area right here that we have left on all 4 corners. And while you're doing that, if you have any overhang, go ahead and trim that as well. One panel is complete. Let's move on to the card slot side. Go ahead and make all the markings on your card slot side as indicated in the pattern. And just like we did with the slip pocket, we're going to press the first line right sides together. Then we'll go to the second line and we'll press that right sides together. Then we'll keep repeating this pattern all the way down. Right sides together, wrong sides together. Then on all the folds that go outwards, we're going to top stitch at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And keep repeating all the way down. So now we'll have a piece that looks like this. And just like before, we're going to take those side lining panels and match them up, starting at the top, and we're going to sew down the sides at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. We'll go ahead and trim those side lining panels only, leaving the card slots alone, and then we'll top stitch. Go ahead and trim those 4 bulky corners, and then your card slot lining panel is complete. Decide which panel you want your linings to be on. I want my card slots on the back lining panel and then my slip pocket on the front lining panel. And then we're going to lay these wrong sides together and then we'll baste them on. I'm going to baste this on by curving my panels so that the sides and the bottoms line up. I'm going to use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and baste around. So ultimately you want your panel to be all curved up like this. It makes like a little tortoise shell. And then we'll repeat for the other one. Go ahead and grab your gusset and your front panel and mark the centers on both sides of your gusset and on your zipper panels. Then do the same thing for your main panel, mark the centers. Then we're going to turn this wrong side out. Which again gives you like this turtle shape. Open your zippers a little bit and stagger them so they kind of look like this from the inside. We're going to find that center marking and match up our centers and clip that on. Then I'll go down to the bottom and do the same thing, matching up the centers, and then clip it on. Then we'll continue clipping around. You can staple baste this at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or you can baste this on at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to baste it on. If you staple basted, make sure you baste on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you did not, and you basted on like me, we'll go ahead and move on. Make sure you remove your staples for this next part. I'm going to use 1 1/4 inch wide waterproof canvas for my binding again. And I'm going to start at the center and clip this on all the way around. I've folded my waterproof canvas in half and made a little halfway line all the way through so I can know where to line up my like raw edge with the center of my waterproof canvas. So once we get this all the way on, we're going to sew this on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. This is why I only used 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to baste this on, so you don't see the basting stitches afterwards. I'm not really good at keeping a consistent 1/4 inch when I'm basting and then sewing right on top of that, so I like to use 1/8 of an inch and then do my full seam allowance at the end. And then when I get back to the beginning, I'm going to overlap it, and this is where we'll start sewing. Okay, like I said, this is 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to use about 4 1/2 to stitch this on. I'm going to go ahead and check the other side of my binding and make sure that I caught all my binding all the way around, which it looks like I did. And then I'm going to trim down that binding so it's right up next to that stitch line we have. I'm going to do this for the outside of the binding and the inside of the binding. So now we're going to go ahead and take this and open the zippers all the way and turn it right side out. So I wouldn't worry about trying to fix your wrinkles right now, because we're just going to turn the gusset wrong sides out again. So it's going to be all squished up and bad looking like that. And then we're going to repeat the same thing on this other side using our back panel now. Okay, now it should look like this, and we're going to turn it right side out. Now's the time you want to round all your curves and try to get this as smooth as possible. You're going to have to do it for each compartment. Put some steam on this and get it all nice and smooth. Make sure you use a Teflon sheet for the smoothing out. Then you can put your strap on, and your Delilah is complete. I hope you had a good time sewing this with me. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. See you next time. Bye.